What's wrong, Henry? Thomas asked. I had an unruly passenger today, Henry answered. Oh? Thomas said. Tell us about it, Percy said. It was a little girl. She wouldn't stop screaming and crying, Henry said. How did you hear her once she was in the coach? Gordon asked. It was before she got on the coach. She called me a big green monster, Henry said. The engines howled in laughter. It's not funny. I've never seen a human so terrified of a train, Henry said. I've never had that happen to me in all my years of pulling the express, Gordon said. Well, if she was afraid of me, I'm sure she'd be afraid of you too, Henry said. Did you do anything to frighten her? Thomas asked. No, I was just sitting there waiting for passengers to load the coaches, Henry answered. If you're going to frighten my passengers, I'm not going to let you pull the express anymore, Gordon said. But, it wasn't my fault, Henry exclaimed. I wonder if the Fat Controller received any complaints from her family after today, Thomas said. I'm the one who should complain, Henry exclaimed. I bet the Fat Controller won't allow you to pull the express anymore. Next time, he'll have me pull it when Gordon can't, James said. Humph. Henry scoffed. He didn't want to be angry at the girl, but he couldn't help that he was. If her father called the Fat Controller and complained, Henry might be sent to the scrap yard. Henry closed his eyes and pretended to be asleep, so the other engines would leave him alone. Henry's driver woke him during the middle of the night. Henry, I need to take you for a midnight drive, his driver said. Why? Henry asked. Irritated he had been awoken. Boss's orders, his driver answered. Henry remembered the terrified little girl. Her father probably called the Fat Controller and complained about Henry frightening her. I'm going to the scrap yard. Henry thought in horror. Now, he wished he had never pulled Gordon's express. Sadly, he pulled out of his shed and drove onto the turntable. We're going to the station, his driver said. We're going to the station, his driver said. The suspense was driving Henry crazy. He wanted to know exactly why he was being forced on this midnight drive. When he arrived at the station, it was devoid of people except for a man holding a little girl's hand as he stood waiting for Henry's arrival. It was the same little girl that threw a fit about how terrifying he was. He didn't want to see her again. Upon seeing Henry, she buried her face in her father's coat. Come on, Elizabeth, you're going for a train ride, her father said. No, she exclaimed. Her father pulled her towards Henry's cab. Henry's driver helped her inside of it. We'll take care of her, the driver said. The girl screamed. Henry's driver helped her inside of it. We'll take care of her, the driver said. The girl screamed as Henry puffed away from the station. Her father stayed behind for some reason. Now, Henry here is a gentle giant. He's not frightening at all, the driver said. Why does it have fire inside of it? She asked, staring at Henry's firebox. To burn coal to give Henry the energy he needs to drive on the railroad. That's why he has his tender behind him, his fireman said. Let's go up Gordon's Hill, Henry continued to ponder why he was taking this girl on a ride in the middle of the night. It couldn't be a scenic drive. What did they expect her to see in the dark? If not for Henry's lamp, none of them would see anything at all. It didn't make any sense to Henry. With all his might, he puffed up Gordon's Hill. See how powerful Henry is? His driver said to the girl. Trains weren't created to scare children. They were created to help humans. Before we had cars, we had trains. Henry's driver stopped him at the water tank. Number sign. After the long drive, Henry's driver parked him at the water tank. You deserve a nice long drink after being such a good engine about this midnight drive, his driver said. The girl climbed out of the cab with his driver. She kept close by his side as he walked around to Henry's face. Henry, this is Fulvia. She's terrified of you, his driver said. Henry didn't know what to say. His driver picked up the girl and held her close to Henry's face. See, he's not so scary, he said. Fulvia touched the tip of Henry's nose. Henry flinched. I bet he isn't afraid of anything, she said. He used to be afraid of rain, his driver said. Henry blushed. Fulvia giggled. That was the first time she had smiled near Henry. Oh, he was so afraid of rain his boss locked him in a tunnel, his driver said. Henry's cheeks were bright red now. Fulvia laughed. Why did he have to remind me about that tunnel? Henry thought. Are you afraid of him anymore? His driver asked. No, Fulvia answered. Let's get you home then, his driver said. Silly Henry, Fulvia said, giggling. Her father was waiting for her at the station. Instead of going to him, she stood on Henry's front fender. It's supposed to rain tomorrow. I heard on the radio, she whispered to Henry. I'm not scared of rain anymore, Henry said. Fulvia, what are you doing? Her father asked. Talking to Henry. Amazing. She goes from screaming upon seeing a train to standing on its fender. I want Henry to take me on a ride again tomorrow in the rain, so he can prove to me he's no longer afraid of it, his driver laughed. Henry will give you a ride in the rain. Won't you? His driver asked. Henry didn't want to see Fulvia ever again. When Henry arrived back at the shed, all the other engines were just waking up. You get half a day off today, Henry, to catch up on your sleep, his driver said. Henry felt incredibly tired. Henry, where have you been all night? Gordon asked. I had a midnight run, Henry said, yawning. What midnight run? Gordon asked. I had to take a girl for a train ride, so she won't be scared of trains anymore. Henry yawned again. Gordon laughed. I must hear all about it tonight, Gordon said.